This conference will
Yeah.
now be recorded.
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
read the thing. I'll read that statement.
Okay.
Todd Miller, the new Economic Development Tourism Coordinator, who's starting at the beginning of June, is going to be listening in on this as well. All right, so to start the meeting, I have to read this formal announcement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Sturbridge Tourist Association will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website at www.sturbridge.gov/administrator/pages/how-access-virtual-meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen in or watch the meeting either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast on cable television on channel 191 or dialing into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428# for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. The phone number is only active for the public during this meeting. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post it on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceeding as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, that's all the formal announcement. So now we officially start the meeting of May 20th. I'm again, myself is Brian Amity, Chairman. I'm Jeff Bridges, the Town Administrator, is here. Tom Chamberlain, the Vice Chair. Nick Salvador is also here. Christina Pappas, who will be presenting from Open the Door. Marketing is here. Don Merriman is here. And Todd Miller, as I said before, is the new Economic Development Tourism Coordinator for the town. He'll be starting June 1st, I believe. So the only one we're missing is Jeff Artist, so maybe he'll chime in later. All right, so the agenda for tonight is the approval of the minutes of the March 6th meeting, the treasurer's report, Christina Pappas's presentation of the marketing and branding, tourism update, and then setting our next meeting and then adjourn. So the first item on the agenda, you should have all received the meeting minutes from May 6th. If you all had a chance to go over them. And I see caller 5 has arrived.
Yeah, hang on, guys. I didn't have the login info.
Okay, no problem.
Usually you get maybe we're not on it, an email. Usually you get like a reminder the day of, but I went back and found it.
All right, you arrived now? Are you there?
Yeah, Jeff's here.
Okay, great. All right, so we have to approve the meeting minutes of the May 6th meeting. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to go over those. Anybody
I
have
don't
any?
see a problem, so I'll make a motion. We approve them as printed.
Okay. Okay, I make
Don
sure
Merriman,
you,
second.
yeah, make sure when you make the motions, announce who you are, so that the recorder can do that.
Tom Chamberlain makes the motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
Don Merriman, second.
Great. All right, any discussion? In favor, Brian Amity, I accept.
Salvador,
Tom
in
Taylor,
favor.
yes.
Nick Salvador, Jeff Artis.
Von Merriman, accept.
Jeff's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, great.
There
So
we
accepted
go.
5-0. All right, the next item is the treasurer's report. If you don't mind, I'd like to hold that till after Christina's presentation, because we had something develop and I don't want to, it may be a little lengthy discussion. So I don't want to take that away from her. I'd rather have her make her presentation and then we can do the treasurer's report after. If
A lengthy
nobody minds.
discussion might ensue.
Yes, it might ensue, Jeff.
We're both here tonight, so you never know.
Yeah. It could be something simple. It could be a lengthy discussion. So I'd rather hold off on that till after Christina's presentation. So we'll welcome Christina Pappas from Open the Door Marketing. We're glad to have you, and you've been working on this diligently through all these times, and you've borne with me. My emails back and forth. We've communicated well since Kevin's departure almost 2 months ago now. So
Absolutely.
on top of everything.
A lot of doors are shut and we need some of them opened. Well,
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, hopefully that's what this plan will do and set you in a good position moving forward. So I am going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. I love technology. Excellent. All right, we're good. Can you see
Yep.
that?
Yeah, I can
Perfect.
see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Excellent, very good. So what I tried to do was just summarize the plan. I know you've all had an opportunity to take a look at it. We have sent the branding. It was a big document. We had Craig presenting the research a few months ago. That was a big document. What I've tried to do is summarize it all, give you an overview, and then, I'm happy to answer any questions, going forward. I will thank Tom for a couple of typos and clarifications that I have made in the plan. So I can send a final version to everybody. And as I get to certain parts, I will reference them. There were a few, typos in one area. I said in the first 6 months, what I meant was in the first 3 months of 2020, that kind of thing. So little things were corrected along the way. So basically going into this project, we had 3 goals. Establish a cohesive brand that resonates with the public. Position Sturbridge as a hub of entertainment, small business, outdoor adventure, and really highlight the convenience of Sturbridge in the ease of visitor travel from the Northeast corridor. And the process that we went through were the stakeholder interviews, conducting the comparative analysis of similar communities, the qualitative research that Craig conducted for us, the online consumer survey that we put in place, and additional research on trends, statistics, information from the Office of Travel and Tourism, from the U.S. Travel Association, and everybody else in between. Our target audiences, once we, looked at what everybody was doing, and like Mott in Discover Central Mass and Discover New England, as well as looking at just who's coming into the area, target audiences are obviously domestic visitors from the Northeast drive market, and this is going to be more important now more than ever. And the international visitor, and I'll touch on that in a little bit when we get into some of the strategies and tactics, but looking at families and couples and those interested in heritage travel, arts and culture, and recreation. From our research that we looked at, secondary research that we looked at, as well as the research that Craig conducted, we realized and learned that travelers are looking for opportunities to partake in unique and varied activities. Traveling is a way to enhance personal growth and enlightenment, looking for a change of pace. And I think after we all get out of quarantine, we'll definitely be looking for a change of pace, an opportunity to connect with others, to explore new surroundings, and to cultivate a shared experience. And across the board, everybody's looking for satisfaction, value, and price. And again, as we come out of this this quarantine period, travelers are going to be looking as well at safety and cleanliness. And again, I'll get into some of that research shortly. Again, U.S. travel direct spending in 2019 was on $792.4 billion with $124.6 billion in tax revenue. So there's a lot of money being spent on travel. And the most popular leisure activities for the domestic market are visiting friends and relatives, shopping, fine dining, and rural sightseeing, all which fits in well with what Sturbridge has to offer. So obviously I was, 80% done with the plan, 90% done with the plan when we went into lockdown. And it's been interesting sort of following the research. But basically what everybody is saying is that, travel is going to rebound. Travel always does rebound. In this Longwoods travel sentiment study that was done a few weeks ago, 85% of those surveyed with plans in the next 6 months will change their plans, but 48% will cancel, but 43% will reduce their travel. 19% will change to a drive destination. 11% will go from international to domestic. And when you think that there were 100 million international outbound trips from the US last year, that's a huge market, that 11% to even pull upon. 40% will change their destinations to avoid crowds, and 49.4% will change their plans to a staycation within the drive market. And I really think that within the next 6 to 18 months, that's what we're going to be looking at, is the drive market. Luggage Hero survey that was conducted a few weeks ago, 42% of the travelers who have plans won't change them. 32% will avoid big cities and public transportation in place of the outdoors, and 31% will reduce their vacation budget. So people are obviously looking to get away from the subways in the cities and kind of have that space and not as many germs around. U.S. Travel Association MMGY study, 50% of the respondents said they will travel. 1 in 3 of that 50% will travel closer to home. And the thing that I found most interesting was that travelers from the Northeast are more likely to re-engage in travel before any other part of the country. So if we're looking at the drive market, and they are projecting that the Northeast travelers are going to be the first to travel for leisure travel, that puts us in a better position than some other destinations.
Christina, why do you think that is? Is that because people in the Northeast feel more cabin fever because we've had the strictest restrictions? That's an interesting.
I think it has to do. Yeah, I think it has to do with the restrictions. I also think, I would have said East Coast and West Coast, just because of the types of residents on both coasts, as opposed to a different lifestyle in the middle of the country. But I think it's partly restrictions. I think it's partly a lot of buildup. I'm sure that it's the Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., sort of the bigger cities, the Philadelphia, people looking to get out of the cities and just start moving. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Closer.
Right. And then in looking at these sentiment studies, these numbers are increasing week over week. I mean, the studies come out every single week, and those numbers are increasing. So I think the consumer confidence is coming back. But again, people, and everybody has a bit of cabin fever. I'm sure, you all do. I know I do. I'm ready for change. But I actually escaped to New Hampshire to my father's house and, go to Boston to get my mail. And I have to say, when I go to Boston, I don't want to be there. I just want to pick up my mail and get out of there really fast because I don't want to be around those germs. And I'm a pretty hardy city girl. So I think that the mentality of people is going to be, let's get out, let's do something, but let me have my space to do it. And let me know that it's safe and clean and not overrun with a ton of people. So it'll be interesting to watch, and we'll keep an eye on those numbers. In terms of a regional overview, Massachusetts had 26.8 million domestic visitors in FY 2019, which would be July 1st of 2018 to June 30th of 2019. The next set of numbers aren't out yet. But though the next number, the 76.4% of Massachusetts domestic visitors are from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New England. That's been consistent for years. The majority of them are arriving by car, 80% are staying overnight, and the average length of stay is 3.5 nights. International visitors are coming from primarily Canada, UK, China, and Europe, although I think those China numbers are going to be down going forward. Logan does have nonstop service to 77 domestic and 56 international destinations daily. I know that last week, Logan does every morning. They have an 8 a.m. call where they kind of go through facts and figures. And I think last Thursday they had 2,000 passengers on Thursday, and yesterday they had 3,000 passengers. So they were getting very excited that the numbers are increasing. So, you know, the numbers are still really just next to nothing at Logan. And in fact, I was invited to be on a reopening panel, and they were going to do bi-weekly meetings every 2 weeks to talk about, you know, how we can get things reopen and what our marketing programs would be. And on Friday, they said it was too premature to be doing those meetings, and so they've canceled them for the time being. So I think Logan has a long way to go before it really gets back up and running, obviously, and the airlines come back. So again, I think we'll be really focused on the drive market. Just thought I'd do a quick chart of 2019 occupancy, hotel occupancy, average daily rate and revenue per available room, just so you can see what the average is for the US, Massachusetts, Worcester, and then where Sturbridge falls with that. And then one of the things I had here again was, and by the way, all these charts are in the plan, but also I'll make this PowerPoint available to you. But again, I took a look at the expenditures, payroll, employment, state taxes, and local taxes. And the taxes, that was one of the clarifications from the other day. The taxes that are collected are all related to the travel industry, but they include lodging, meals, entertainment, retail, and transportation. So that's what that number is comprised of. So the stakeholder interviews were great. And one of the things that I was very happy about was that the responses from everybody were very consistent. And I spoke to over 40 people, and everybody pretty much said the same thing. Sometimes you do these projects and you get 40 different avenues and you have to kind of try to find the common thread. In this case, everybody pretty much said the same thing, which was great. It really helped to provide, you know, the direction where we needed to go. There was general agreement that Sturbridge has great assets for travelers. They're just not being communicated well. That we need to be focusing on recreation, arts, dining, and other attributes, not just Old Sturbridge Village. We need to find unique ways to package and promote, and also really promote the unique geographic location and just how it's a great place for people to be able to meet up, coming at it from different directions. And also, you know, not only meeting up, but how Sturbridge could provide a hub and spoke kind of model for visitors, where you stay in Sturbridge and you do your day trips to other surrounding areas. And then in terms of what is needed, these things came up consistently in the conversations. Collaboration between the town, meaning the tourism marketing effort, and the businesses. Having a dedicated tourism person to be, you know, working on all these activities. Of course, what everybody knows, a better conference center for group business. I mean, that is something that is really hurting in terms of group and meeting business. Needing better wayfinding. I mean, there's a lot of signage, and I know signage has been an issue for a while. You know, I always try to say, put yourself in the shoes of the visitor who doesn't know anything about anything, what is going to make it easy for them? Because if you make it easy for them, they're going to come, they're going to stay. But if it's not easy for them, or if it's confusing, they're just going to, keep on going, or say, I'm not going back there because I couldn't figure out what to do. So I think, they're almost, I talk later in the plan about figuring out transportation. But I think also the signage almost needs a subcommittee, and again, I'll get to that to talk about that. Having consistent and later store and restaurant hours. I heard repeatedly that the restaurants are fabulous, which I know, but that they don't. Not a lot of them stay open later, and also when you're trying to get people to stay over, they don't have any place to go. So, at a certain point, they have to go back to their hotel. So they're there for a wedding, and, they go out for a drink after the wedding, and then they have to go back. So if there were some consistent and later hours, even if it were just weekends or, Thursday, Friday, Saturday or something, that might help drive business. And then, again, I heard repeatedly about needing a flexible regulatory environment. There were a lot of comments on, that the town wants the new business and to drive business, but then not necessarily always making it easy for businesses. So again, I think that's probably something that's just a communications plan as well, to show people doing the outreach, and that could probably be worked into the community relations plan at the end of the presentation that I talk about.
Christina,
Yes.
yeah,
Can I jump in real quick with a question on that? Yep.
Yeah.
The second bullet point, focus on recreation, arts, dinings, and other aptitudes versus Old Sturbridge Village.
Yep.
Where we spend our STA money,
Yep.
very little of it actually goes to promoting Old Sturbridge Village.
So it wasn't necessarily the promotion of, it was the that there's, it wasn't the money being spent on promotion, it was the awareness of what's out there being promoted, so that that everybody feels that it's all about Old Sturbridge Village, and they don't hear enough about recreation, arts, dining, and everything else going on in town.
Okay, so
it's more of a
basically we've got to up our game.
Yeah. So it's really, it's interesting. I mean,
Okay.
you have all the assets and you have all the pieces in place. A lot of this is just going to come down to the communication of it and letting people know that this is what's happening.
yeah,
Okay,
Christina, I think some of these things are trying to get a little bit better now with new owners of the Sturbridge host. Hopefully that conference center
Yep.
will improve. And I know some of the restaurants are trying to do some type of like entertainment and whether they're going to stay open later hours, I'm not sure. But I see a trend towards some type of entertainment to make visitors go there, maybe stay a little longer. So, but again, I think that's a problem that we have, or in communication, not only to the other businesses in town, but even the people who live in town.
Right.
People know about this stuff. And to Tom's point, Tom, you're right. I mean, a lot of people don't know about all of our great assets that we have. They know about Old Sturbridge Village because, they know, oh yeah, I've been there. I went there when I was a kid. So now we have a dedicated tourism person, so we're all set now.
Exactly. And I think it comes down to, like everything else, especially when you're in the trenches and you know everything that's going on and you know it beyond what you want to know about it. Sometimes we forget that everybody else doesn't necessarily know it as well as you do, or they don't necessarily know what's going on. And sometimes you have to hit them over the head with it 6 times before they go, oh yeah, I heard that that's happening, or there's a new owner at the host, and so better things will be happening, or whatever. But I think it's, so it really is a communication awareness thing, which is a great problem, because that's easy to address.
Yeah, and I've said too, some of the hoteliers, their frontline people don't know enough about what's going on in town,
Right.
or what else to do besides going to Old Sturbridge Village. So
Yep.
Don, I know you'll fix that on your end.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
Excellent.
No pressure. No.
So as I said, we did the qualitative research with Craig. He gave you that big proposal. I think I've summarized it into two-page or presentation. I've summarized it into 2 pages, but basically we looked at people who are traveling to New England, other places in New England, families, couples, those looking for historical destinations, looking at their broad trip planning and their general interest reading and how they were getting their information. They're looking to Google to determine their anchor event, and then fill in the details around that event or that activity, by researching newsletters, websites, special interest apps, and then they're looking at trusted sources, their friends or social media or TripAdvisor or Yelp to see if these are really the things they should be doing. And that's how they're planning their trip. And then, as Craig said, we had 3 types of planners: the precise planner, the improv explorer, and the time traveler. The person who wants to plan it out well in advance and kind of know everything they're doing and have options and second options and third options before they even get there. The one that wants to go, on the fly. And so, what he was telling us, which makes perfect sense, is that by providing sample itineraries and options and making everything mobile friendly and insider perspective, this will help people find out what to do around the anchor events that they choose. And I guess events isn't necessarily the right word. I would say anchor activities, and really provide them with the quaint and authentic experiences, to let them know all there is to do in Sturbridge. We did an online consumer survey, and at least the template is there. We had a couple hundred responses, and the template is there moving forward so that you can be sending it out annually, and comparing the data year over year. I had done this for Salem, whatever it was, 12 years ago, and they do it annually, and it's amazing to watch the trends and the patterns about, they're trying to shift people to come, not in October, and to come off season, and the way they've been able to look at the research and the responses from the consumers and from the visitors and really create campaigns that affect the travel patterns and how that data has changed through the years. It's really quite fascinating. So I think with these questions, you're set up to be able to do that now annually and can kind of see what people are saying and modify programs based on results going forward. Again, not surprising, 41% of the respondents were over 65, although 45 to 65 was highly represented in the survey. 30% spent over the $251, 32% stayed 1 or 2 nights. A third visited Sturbridge as part of a longer trip. And of course, the majority knew Sturbridge because of a childhood trip, or they were invited to an event. And this figure of 25% relied solely on their family for information when planning a visit is really important, because when we get to that community relations campaign, I mean, that's one of the reasons why you want to make sure everybody in town knows everything that's going on so that they can relay it to their family or friends when those people ask them, what should I do if I come to Sturbridge? Obviously, people use the internet to make plans, access social media. A significant amount of these people had visited Old Sturbridge Village, and of the people who said they did not visit in the last year, 22% said they didn't come because they'd already visited Old Sturbridge Village. So again, we need to educate people that there's more to Sturbridge than the village. It's a good hook, but there's more. We looked at a bunch of general trends, generational, multi-generational trips, how the grandparents are paying for the trips, the grandchildren are telling their grandparents what they want to do. Experiential travel, which is really, is important. People want the experience. They don't want the things. They want to have that experience in their trip. And again, as we come out of quarantine, I think that's going to play a more important role going forward. Looking at social media and technology, how it affects travel, augmented reality, which is an interesting trend. Again, looking at soft adventure and micro trips, those 2-day trips, and how people want to get away and go hiking and biking and just escape a little bit. before they go back to their world. The group travel market, unfortunately, I think the group travel market is going to be one of the last groups to come back. You know, people aren't going to want to get on a bus and travel in large groups of people unless they know that they are safe and secure. But leisure, business and leisure, is actually going to play a more important role going forward. People combining trips, that if they're going to make a trip for business and it's to a place they want to be, they're going to tack on a couple days so that they're not making a second trip. So they'll still have their vacation, but they'll combine it all in one trip. And then of course sustainability is important, and then motion-based, which is, you know, people getting on a bike and going from venue to venue, or, you know, hotel to hotel and staying overnight, which is a growing trend. And then again, we looked at different destinations. We looked at Plymouth, we looked at Lexington, we looked at Concord, we looked at Salem, to see what they were doing and also how they were marketing and promoting themselves. And this really comes into play when we talk a bit about the website, which I'll get to later, and looking at, you know, just sort of how they're all similar. You know, you have visitor info, things to do, lodging, dining, shopping, group info, weddings and events on the Plymouth page. Same thing on Lexington to a certain extent. Concord just redid theirs, and this, even though it's a screenshot, this is actually a video. So they just have a video slideshow playing of different images of Concord. And then Salem, which, you know, again, is just clean and easy to get the information and access the information. And then we looked at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities in Sturbridge. Obviously, strengths are strategic location, having local accommodations, venues, and facilities, access to natural areas, soft adventure activities, strong restaurant brewery scene, Old Sturbridge Village, and knowledge of Sturbridge by the antiquing community. Weaknesses, lack of strong conference facility, but with the sale of the host, hopefully that'll help. Limited walkability downtown, 2 centers of town, so no real area of focus. No public transportation, limited evening activities, limited business hours, and of course winter weather, which we all suffer from. The public transportation did come up a lot in the stakeholder interviews as well. Again, people saying, you know, if I want to go from bar to bar and I want to drink, you know, how do I get around short of Uber or Lyft, and is there any way to have some sort of transportation that ties into you know, those evening activities? Yes.
Christina, were you aware somewhere in our briefings that we did give that a try, and unfortunately didn't have the critical mass to support it?
Yeah. So, you know, and I'm wondering if with a more comprehensive integrated plan, if it might be worth dabbling in again at a certain point based on, you know, whatever programs get up and running, or looking at, you know, if you're able to have these collective quarterly meetings and really get everybody around the table, you know, if there's a way to be talking about it and sharing resources and, you know, getting a commitment from all the partners, and or looking for grant funding for some of that. So I guess my answer is yes, I was aware, but I think it might be worth one more stab.
We also might get
enough,
better in, I was just going to say, we might get better engagement from the businesses that really didn't help promote it this time around. Like if a lot of the hotels and restaurants are really looking to make a push to make up for lost revenue, you know,
Right.
they might be a little more supportive than they were a year ago.
Yep,
I would
absolutely.
definitely
Well, and
agree with that.
that was the
Definitely.
idea, that when somebody checked in, they'd be handed a flyer on this thing and by every desk in town, and immediately told that it was available. But that was just a wish. We don't know if that ever actually happened. So.
I do think there's quite a bit of pent up energy within all the entrepreneurs around here to make up for lost time and lost ground. So I think what he was saying is absolutely spot on.
Right. Okay. So opportunities, there's the ability to be able to draw more people to Sturbridge to stop and to stay. Find ways to create walkability in existing neighborhoods. And I think this gets into sort of the content and the communication in the next part of this presentation. Improve coordination among businesses. I know there have been different businesses who get together, talk to each other, kind of try to make something happen. But I think if there's a larger collective and everybody can focus on one campaign or one strategy or one pick the themed month and the programming that everybody wants to agree to promote, then that will help elevate the activities. Focus on beautification and accessibility of the waterfront areas. I heard a lot about the waterfront areas, so I think there's opportunities there. Develop pickup, drop-off bike stations, prune trails for cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. Leverage the Old Sturbridge Village target audiences and what they're trying to do. And I know that they're taking the lead on the group tour side of things. But again, maybe, find ways to combine the Old Sturbridge Village, customer who's going for that experience with, letting them know about the dining and the outdoor activities as well. And then obviously there's a lot of opportunity for increased wedding business due to the location.
Christina, Old Sturbridge Village is working on a initiative to kind of collaborate with Plymouth and Mystic, so that the three, like a triangle, so that might help bring more business as well, because Chris Thierry has already mentioned that to me and want to know if we'd be interested in helping with the funding. Of course. So, but
that would be great, to try to cross promote and get those visitors. Absolutely.
Yeah. Christina, a question on prune the trails for cross country skiing. Is prune the right word, or did you mean groom?
Oh, I think I meant groom. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because our trails are all pruned for horseback riding. So
right.
I know there's plenty of clearance.
Right, exactly. So yeah, just obviously just you have those great trails, so so expand it, and that gives people something to do in the winter. And then some of the conversations that I had with the businesses, particularly with the hotels, was who can they do a package where they have the equipment available for people? So, where skis are available, or the snowshoes are available, or bikes are available, or kayaks are available, or whatever else. So you come for the, whatever hotel outdoor adventure, and it includes, X, Y, and Z, and really helps to leverage what they have to offer. And there was some positive feedback on that. So I think really it's getting people around a table and talking about these things and saying, okay, today we're going to talk soft adventure. How do we maximize the exposure and promote it as much as possible, and who can do what, and how do we make awareness, greater awareness for Sturbridge offering that.
Yeah, I can tell you the Trails Committee has a couple times broached starting to look at grooming equipment for the trails.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty strong interest with the Fat Tire mountain bike group. Yeah. Because they also need groomed trails, and they've approached the Trails Committee to start looking at how can we start grooming our trails somehow. So it's been an interesting discussion. I'll leave it at that.
I can imagine. I can imagine. But again, what I like about it is it really helps, promote for the winter months, which are so tough. So.
Agreed.
All right. So then I sent the other day the revised brand documents. These were the colors that are proposed, which I really kind of like. I think they play well for Sturbridge. We talked about the incorporating the weather vane, which we have, And basically, we have the experienced Sturbridge, which we all talked about. And I think the weather vane works well, the experience, the Sturbridge, it all kind of plays well together. The other thing we looked at was like a local. So I almost think, and I talked a lot about this with the graphic designer, the experienced Sturbridge, this is your brand and this is what goes on business cards. But then the like a local is something that would be your marketing campaign and would be on your ads. We looked at like a experienced Sturbridge, like a local, and having the weather vane. And unfortunately, it gets really, really busy. And so the graphic designer, and I agree with him, doesn't recommend that you do all of this together because you got way too much going on. But in the brand guidelines, we we have business cards that have the weather vane on one side and experienced Sturbridge on the other. I mean, it could be done a bunch of different ways, but again, I'd look at it as the weather vane is with experienced Sturbridge as the brand, and the experienced Sturbridge like a local would be the tagline that you would use in your marketing, if that makes sense.
The question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Did
Jeff.
anybody try to put the weather vane in Sturbridge as the T?
Yeah.
Use it as part of the word?
Yes, and it didn't read very well. It looked like Sturbridge. Okay. I guess we could play with the font further, but it didn't play out for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so again, in the style guide, we've listed how it could be used on business cards, how it could be used on letterhead, how you would use it on social media and on ads and everything else. And I really like the like a local. You could also do it as we said in the style guide, like a brewer. You could have like a bride. I mean, it just plays for so many different audiences, like a crafter, like a foodie, like a anything, and you could have a great image. And the nice thing about that is, when you have this experienced Sturbridge like all you need is a picture and then a call to action. You don't need a whole ad that has a whole bunch of graphics going on. So it actually makes your advertising very easy and clean as well. So you could almost have a series of photos that you like, and then your experienced Sturbridge like gets inserted into it, and then you have a whole ad campaign right there, and it can hit all the different audiences that you're looking for. So the goals of the marketing program were obviously to increase the number of domestic and international visitors, and then increase occupancy rate and length of stay. So all of the programs that are proposed have really been designed to drive overnight business, because at the end of the day, that's where your money is coming from. And so you need to drive that overnight business. The strategic priorities were promoting and selling the town's assets, programs, attractions, and services, growing community engagement, collaboration, seeking media opportunities, fostering connections, developing story ideas, creating a visitor website, increase partner financial support to expand marketing effort. And I know that you're often supporting everybody else, but I think there are ways to develop programs where you also get some private sector support of the actual marketing programs that you're trying to do. The communication strategies are created based on marketing research, data, and results. Having a consistent social media presence that's integrated with the tourism marketing efforts, finding improvements for wayfinding and signage, and working with partners to establish transportation for visitors, or to come up with some sort of another trial plan once all of these other pieces get into place. So for the leisure market, looking at communications, and again, the majority of this plan, so I'm I'll back up for a minute. I'm all for having money and being able to spend it and being able to advertise, and isn't that great and wonderful and fun, but I've also worked for enough places that we had no money, so we had to be really scrappy and creative. And a lot of that comes down to communications and developing partnerships. So a lot of this plan is based on those. You know, it's going to cost you manpower, but it's not necessarily going to cost you a lot of money. It's not a, you know, $300,000 advertising campaign. It's a, you know, get some warm bodies to roll up their sleeves and get the job done, and leverage partnerships and develop content. And gee, maybe there's a little money for advertising too. So a lot of it has to do with communication. So coming up with media lists and media releases and editorial calendars and, you know, educational trips, which a lot of people know them as FAM trips, familiarization trips. I like to call them educational trips. And I think they're two-pronged. One is for media, and the other is for the local audiences. As Brian said, you know, there are a lot of salespeople and front desk people and concierges who don't know what Sturbridge has to offer. So almost doing an annual educational trip for the people who are helping to sell Sturbridge. So whether it's, you know, with representatives from the Office of Travel and Tourism and Discover Central Massachusetts and Discover New England, to, you know, businesses that are doing, you know, promoting different destinations for groups, you know, whether they're destination management companies or, again, the concierges, the frontline people, you know, make it open to the people who are helping to cross-sell the destination and educate them on what Sturbridge has to offer. So I think that's a really important component.
Yeah, Christine, I just want to touch on that point a little bit for the group. You know, I've been around a long time. We used to do this in Sturbridge years ago. I don't know what happened. It all went away. But one of the things we used to do we call them FAM tours, obviously, is take people who actually work in hotels and bring them around to show them what was in the town or what was in the surrounding area, so that they would become accustomed. But again, you know, somewhere along the line, this all went away. But you know, throwback, okay, it all comes back. You know, I've been there, but it all disappeared. But you know, it was very beneficial. In fact, when I was running one of the properties here in town, when we did this, I even had some of my housekeepers go, because wouldn't you, you know, if you're a guest, the first person you see is a housekeeper. So you would ask them questions so they would know the answers. So that's the
thing. It's anybody who's interacting with your customers. So it could be the wait staff at a restaurant, you know, it's the shopkeepers, people who, you know, it helps to build camaraderie within the community, but it also, you know, these people are talking to customers every day, and it helps to educate them on what there is to offer. And that's, you know, the next point, having e-newsletters would be sent not only to the customers, but also sent to those people locally who are selling on your behalf, so that they know what's going on and what you're promoting and what you're talking about. Looking at content development, you know, coming up with suggested itineraries that, again, get included in the newsletter, but also sit on the website. So whether it's a brewery tour, or antiquing trail, or, you know, recreation soft adventure, all these different ideas, you know, having content, you have to make it easy for people. If you make it easy and you deliver to them ideas, you know, you're 3/4 of the way there in helping them make their decision. If it's hard and they have to do all the work themselves, they're going to go someplace else where the information is provided to them easily. So it's having the itineraries, but it's also having content development for, you know, packages and themed months. So like I said before, you know, you could say I don't know, it's Women's History Month. So what are we going to do? What restaurants, what are you going to do to promote Women's History Month? And they might say, you know, they have a girls' night out special dinner, or the hotels might say they have a girls' weekend away package, or, you know, whatever it is. But then all of a sudden, you as the town have something to say, hey, Sturbridge is celebrating Women's History Month by doing this in the hotels and this in the restaurants and this in the attractions. You know, Sturbridge Village is going to have an exhibit on, you know, women's involvement and, you know, during that time period. You know, I don't know, but it's putting people around the table, and all of a sudden you have one big thing to talk about, which is really great. And so it's coming up with those packages or those themed months. A stopover package, as you know, as we had said in one of our presentations, you know, people are driving through and it's a long way to go skiing, but you know, stop in Sturbridge for the night. So what is it that's going to make it attractive to them to stop and to stay? And a lot of that comes into just the marketing and the promotion and the communication. And if you're posting it on the website and you're talking to the media and you're, you know, sending out newsletters and you're talking about it in social media, all of a sudden you start to build some traction with the same messaging. The other thing in Craig's research, you know, he found people really wanted to have that local experience. You know, what's the insider scoop? What's the place they can't miss? You know, what do the locals say? Where do you go as locals? Not just, you know, here's the guidebook and the top 5 things to do. So we had talked about, and I think it's a great idea as part of your content development, is having welcome emails by locals, you know, providing them to the hotels to be able to give their guests, or maybe even having a local, you know, doing an intro to the newsletter or a blog on the new website, just talking about what, you know, what they love about Sturbridge or their hidden gem or what their treat is in, you know, when they go to escape in January or preferably September. And then also, the Discover Central Mass has an app, and having an Experience Sturbridge piece of content on that app. So, and I know they talked about it a little bit, but there isn't a lot of information there. So really having kind of getting all of this content and, you know, getting it in place on that app. So talking about the visitor website, you know, again, the current website works fine for visitors in terms of the fact that all of the information that a visitor would need is present on the current site: newsletters, calendars, hotels, restaurants, shops, the trail guide, the visitor guide, additional resources. But it's not the easiest to access, and especially when you look at, you know, how clean Salem or Concord's websites were, and it's you know, the consumers that we spoke with in the research did say that the website feels municipal, which of course it is. It's not engaging, you know, that the welcome letter has the right intent, but it's too long, that the list of hotel information appears intended for local businesses rather than visitors. So it's taking all the information which you have, but really just sort of repackaging it to address what a visitor would be looking for. So I know that you have visit sturbridge.org, and I think that should be the, you know, the officially sanctioned website of Sturbridge. Make it, you know, eye-catching, intuitive, give information to the visitors the way they want to receive it, just simple and easy, including the suggested itineraries and different options that they have.
Christina, can I interrupt?
Yep.
What would be your thoughts of, instead of Visit Sturbridge, going with Experience Sturbridge?
I think if it's available, I know you have Visit Sturbridge, but I would do Experience Sturbridge if it's available. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. If that, you know, because that's where you're going with. I don't think you can go wrong with Visit Sturbridge. And in fact, since you own it, you could point Visit Sturbridge to Experience Sturbridge as well, in case somebody makes a mistake and just plugs it in. But yes, I think if it's available, you should be going with that. And you know, it should be something that if you look at Concord's, if you look at Lexington's, if you look at Plymouth's, really all of them, Salem's, they all from their city and town sites, if you click on visitor on their site, it actually takes you to the actual visitor site. And I know, I had talked to Kevin a little bit about the setup, whether, it's a separate company that builds it, or Civic Plus, which does your town site. They can build the sub-site that looks the way you want it to look, and then just sort of is a sub-site, but it links to to this URL. So there are different ways to build it, but I think having something that, again, putting yourself in the mindset of a visitor, make it easy, make it clean, give them what they want, especially since you're competing with everybody else out there and this is what they're doing. You can have your group section that talks about tours, weddings, meetings, and more importantly, it could be a revenue generating opportunity, because you could say, if somebody were to advertise in one of your programs, or to co-op on an ad or at a trade show or something, that they get an enhanced listing on the website. So because you're the town, everybody gets a listing. But it could be a pay to play or a package deal for enhanced listings, and help to generate some revenue. Or it could be something that you say to people who come to you for your events, that you'll give them X amount of money, plus an enhanced listing or a feature banner or whatever. It'll help build relationships back and forth with the businesses.
Mhm.
And then, of course, social media. Obviously, it's important to be out there, but again, it's not a town message. It's a visitor message. It's a message about all the things to see and do and what makes it great. And it could be original posts about different activities that are happening in town. It could be reposts from what some of the businesses are posting out there. Pinterest is great, eventually, because you can post itineraries. So you can say, hey, you're you pin this to your wedding page, and here are all sorts of wedding ideas. You're going to have your wedding in Sturbridge. Here are ideas of things for your guests to do, or businesses for you to be working with as you plan your wedding, or you're taking your kids to Sturbridge over school vacation week. Here's activities. So Pinterest is great to help post on itineraries. And then, of course, YouTube, once you get to the point of being able to have some videos and all. Having some collateral. I know you have the visitor guide and the trail guide. Obviously, those would need to be updated with the new branding. Having a new master calendar of activities and events would be great, as well as some sort of map or two-page brochure, or a small, something that fits in a rack stand or a number 2 envelope that could be handed out at trade shows, or that you could say, hey, all the businesses who are working with us in Sturbridge, when people walk into your restaurant, shop, whatever, and you have that stand of brochures, put this one in about Sturbridge so that people can learn, what else there is. Looking for photography, it's a constant battle. I know you have some photos, but photography can be expensive. So a couple different ways to tackle that. Do an open call for submissions. Ask people, students, photography students, to submit their photos. Just have a plain old request for photos of residents. But the one I like that's often quite quick is, especially on Instagram, ask people to hashtag Experience Sturbridge, and if they hashtag their favorite photos, then that gives you permission to be able to use them for campaigns. And so it's a good way to get some quick photography that's good, that you can work with, and also have some community engagement. Events. So I didn't go into a lot of detail events here. I know you financially support a lot of events. I am of the mind that tourism marketing needs to market and events, because planning events is a lot of work, and you end up going from one event to the next event to the next event, and you don't have time to do all the other promotion that needs to happen. So it's really just making sure those events are promoted within all of the different communications. And then looking at partnerships, as I said before, having tourism, hotel, culture, dining, shopping, having quarterly meetings, coming up with packages and promotions, looking at other organizations to partner with, whether they are other tourism organizations or just, other businesses who are going after the same customer that you're looking for, and really just trying to leverage resources. And then trade shows. So I've listed a bunch of trade shows, and at the back of the plan, there are the spreadsheets broken down by year, and you'll see that all of the trade shows, all of the ads, all of the itineraries, all of the everything aren't all included in year one. They're broken up over years, because otherwise Todd's going to quit before he even starts. So so some of the trade shows that I would say you would want a presence at, and again, it depends on budget, it depends on timing, it depends on where you are with everything else, are things like the AAA Travel Marketplace, the Globe Travel Show. Discover New England is a good one, because it helps you both for your leisure market, both domestic and international, and also your group tour market, because they have planners on both sides of things there. So that might be a cost-effective show to attend.
Yeah, Christina, AAA
Yes.
was very cost-effective for us this year.
Yep.
It has been, because we partnered with Discover Central Mass,
Yep.
and they only $600.
Right.
So,
exactly. Yeah, and it's looking at
so
stuff
those
like
are
that
deals.
where you say it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
it's
also,
worth it.
that, as I said, come up with a trade show list with partners. So once everybody sits around the table and you have all of the hotels and the attractions and everybody, where are they planning on attending? What are they planning on attending? And then see how you say, okay, Hotel X, you're going to this, I'll give you some Sturbridge information. Or you find out that 6 people want to go to the same show. So you say, hey, why don't we just buy one booth and all go together? So I think really sort of having that collective information really makes sense. And that collective information works well as well on the side of asking them, what organizations do they belong to? What memberships do they have? Because then you can leverage that side of things as well. So on the group tour side, if people belong to American Bus Association or Student Youth Travel Association or National Tour Association, and they want to do a local American Bus Association meeting, then you can work with those, rather than trying to start it and initiate it yourself as the town's tourism arm. You already have people involved in these organizations, and you can work with them to have them bring their peers in and kind of tell them everything that Sturbridge has to offer for what they're doing.
Yeah, good.
So it's lots of, like I said, it's a lot of roll up your sleeves and do a lot of work, but it's not necessarily spend a lot of money. In spending money, obviously, you could spend money on advertising, Yankee Magazine, Boston Magazine, they have the travel issues that would be important to be a part of. Facebook, Instagram, paid media, it's nice, but only if you have a ton of money. Or not a ton of money, it's not that expensive, but that wouldn't be my first place to be advertising for you. I think given the sort of the central location in the drive market, I'd look at WBZ traffic reports, because it's a good way to hit that Boston market and people who are sitting in their cars for a while. It's once we all get back to our cars. Advertising on boston.com, in these other venues, Discover Central Massachusetts publications, making sure you have a presence in there. It's really important. Making sure that you have a presence on, TripAdvisor and Google Travel. They have enhanced opportunities beyond what the free listings are. So those are different areas that I would look again to make sure that once we have the content in place that you're promoting it out from there.
Yeah, Christina, I think I asked you in this email,
Yep.
How do we get Chronicle to come out here and do a story about Sturbridge?
So that's back to the communications, and that's your media. So I think once you figure out what those stories are that you want to promote, and I think we've sort of figured them out in terms of, the dining and the outdoor, that it's more than Old Sturbridge Village. And I don't mean to say it like that, because Old Sturbridge Village is important, but there's so much more. And then I think it's just a matter of pitching them that story. But it really comes down to, really once you flush out kind of what those itineraries are and what the bigger picture is, then you have a story that you can pitch to them. And I think it's definitely a worthwhile story. And talking about the hub and
yeah, even the tank away segment or something like that, anything like that. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And especially now where it's all going to be about drive market.
Right.
And then again, part of advertising. So sometimes, it's better to create a co-op ad campaign with the local partners. So you could say, okay, once you sit down with everybody and you're coming up with your trade show list and your membership association list and all of that, then you say, okay, where is it you're advertising? Because you might find out that you have 5, 6, 7 businesses in the Yankee Magazine travel issue. And if that's the case, it could be cheaper for the town to buy a 2-page spread and sell it off in fractions to everybody and sometimes make a little money on it than it is for everybody to go off and do it themselves. So coming up with a way to have a comprehensive, cohesive ad message for the destination by leveraging the other businesses' resources.
Yeah, we have been co-oping with Discover Central Mass on that, where they've given us, they have half a page, we have a half a page. So
right. But imagine if you went to a couple of the hotels in Old Sturbridge Village and said, oftentimes what'll happen is, I'm just going to pick a round number because it works for me. So let's say you have 3 partners and the town is the 4th partner because you want to do experience Sturbridge like a local. And the page is $10,000 and a half page would be $7,500. But if you bought the page for $10,000, you could sell, one of the partners the half page for, maybe a little more than 5,000 to kind of offset what you're doing. But, but in the end, it's a way to get Sturbridge all in one place, as opposed to having all the businesses do their own thing. And then and have them on different pages and just have one, again, cohesive message for the destination.
Okay.
And then, my biggest thing is measurement tools, doing this online survey, looking at industry trends, looking at the Google things that are short or long term. So, how many partners do you have involved? How many of those private sector businesses are working with you and attending things with you and hosting fam trips for you? How many of those fam trips do you have? In terms of number of trips, number of participants, amount of media coverage, amount of business generated, value of media coverage received, because you can look at these short-term measurement tools that are attached to a specific campaign. So you do, you do a contest that's on Instagram and you had, whatever it is, 500 people respond and enter, and you got pictures from them, and it's a short-term thing that you could see the results in 2 weeks. To, what's the increase in tax revenue year over year? So that's a longer-term thing. But if you build in all sort of short-term and long-term, then you get to look at a bigger picture through the course of time, and can pivot your programs to address some of those results or what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And then I think one of the big things is developing those cumulative baseline visitor numbers with partners and measure them quarterly. So, looking at, businesses don't always like to give you the numbers, but, if you promise, they'll be kept completely confidential. You just want them to have a cumulative number, to be able to track, who's seeing what from where. And so you're looking at your leisure numbers or your group tour numbers. I mean, everybody's tracking everything, and, attendance numbers or, numbers at a restaurant, what are they seeing come through their doors, and how does it differ July to September to February, and then trying to figure out how those numbers shift over time, and so that you can create programs to kind of drive more business during need periods. And then a lot of the same tools for the group market. building media lists and group tour operator and meeting planner lists for the group market. And the group market is, the group tours, the weddings, the meetings, the sporting groups, all those different travelers that are coming in as part of a group and not necessarily as an individual traveler. So again, media releases, newsletters, social media, talking about weddings on the social media, which would be important. Doing the same thing, content development, but kind of tweaking what you have for the leisure visitor and making sure it addresses the needs of a group traveler. So whether it's, again, somebody's coming in as part of a wedding, what do you do on a wedding weekend, to, here's a group tour of senior citizens coming in doing their leaf peeping, to here's a tournament, a sports tournament, or another sporting event, or here's a meeting and this is what they can do in their off time, tweaking that content to address what those groups are looking for. And then coming up with collateral that's really meant for them, profile sheets, sort of a double-sided sheet for a group tour operator. Group tour operators are so busy. And again, I know OSV is taking the lead on that market, but I still think it's important for the town as a whole to have a profile sheet on, what you have to offer to that market segment, or what you have to offer to the wedding market segment, or what you have to offer to meeting planners who are bringing in a corporate meeting or a retreat or whatever else. I think having a brochure for venues, of venues for meetings and events is really good. So, so I say I do meetings from 75 to, or 50 people to 250 people. What are my options in Sturbridge? And what can we do, and where can they eat, and where can we do an off-site event, and is there any place for team building? So kind of thinking about that audience and what they're looking for and providing the content for them, and then that master calendar of activities so that's created for the leisure market as well could be used for the group market so that they know what to do with their attendees.
Christina or Brian, do you know if DCM does a meeting and events guide, and if we have a role in that? I know when I was with the North Central Mass Chamber of Commerce, we published a directory like that was focused on meeting planners. Yep. Does that exist for our region, or are we represented there?
It does exist for your region, and you do have a listing in there.
Jeff, I know Kevin did have us in there. And if you recall, I don't know if him mentioning this to us, that DCM wasn't heavily promoting Sturbridge at the time for conventions because of the condition of the Sturbridge Host Hotel. But yeah, I know we had a listing of some type in there.
What kind of maybe this is for discussion later, but what kind of loyalty issues or sensitivities do we have talking to the Southbridge Conference Center? Have we had any conversation with them? I mean, I guess we owe the new owners a chance to make the Sturbridge Host a higher level venue, but I've always thought that was a beautiful venue that was vastly underused, and to be honest, with all due respect to my friend who's the economic development manager in Southbridge, I don't really perceive as a tourist destination. So could we plug, pitch to the business groups there that they need to come out and, they're going to want to stay there, but come out and eat and enjoy Sturbridge while they're in town?
Yeah, I mean, that would be good. I know some of the salespeople who used to work at the host went to the Southbridge Hotel and Conference Center. So it would be I know Kevin tried to do a collaborative effort between Sturbridge and Southbridge, and he didn't get that far into it as far as the hotel end of it. I know he made contact with people there, but I don't know how in depth he pursued it. But it would.
I just feel like one of the things on our sort of to-do list now is we need to draw the business market. Let's quote unquote build a world-class conference center. That's not what we're saying, but let's really up our game there. But with all due respect to the host, if it still exists, if it already exists next door, I feel like that gives us a bit of a different angle. But just a thought.
Right.
Jeff, actually, both, if the host, re-ups their game to where they used to be, they're actually catering to a slightly different market than what Southbridge could. So I don't think it's necessarily putting one against the other. With the exhibition space and the open parking, the host has more conferences and conventions, whereas the Southbridge Business Center is set up more like for regional sales meetings and regional trainings and slightly different business.
Yeah, meetings as opposed to expos. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think all this.
Good point.
And I think all of this information can be, and all of this sort of content and partnership can really be expanded to the surrounding areas. Again, what is it a visitor might want, or what is it an attendee might want, and just let people know that it exists in Sturbridge. For the website, again, having sort of a group area for people to click on and get their information. Looking at memberships, again, as I said, American Bus Association, Student Youth Travel Association, and I don't know, how OSV is doing this, with them taking the lead, but I think it's important for Sturbridge to have a presence with these associations.
Right.
Looking at sales, direct sales, whether it's through the trade shows and building relationships with the different planners and meeting professionals, offering educational trips to those market segments. As I said, local businesses, talking to the hotels and the other businesses, and what of these groups do they belong to, and how can you leverage those resources, and eventually getting to the point where you have a customer advisory board. So whether you start to have, whether you look collectively and start to see the same meeting planners bringing meetings to the area, or the same tour operators bringing their group tours to the area, having an advisory board where you say, hey, what's working, what's not working, what else do you need from us? Because it really is a two-way street. You want to give them what they want, but you need to know what they want in order to deliver it to them. So, so having that communication is really important with these customers. And again, looking at, shows like CITA and ABA and NTA, Connect USA, Discover New England, those should have been two different lines. Working with the local partners to see what group trade shows they're going to. Are any of the hotels going to any of the wedding shows, and how can you partner with them and do more that way and have a Sturbridge presence as opposed to, individual hotels competing with each other. I always believe it's better to sell the destination and then let everybody fight it out once somebody decides on the destination, as opposed to everybody going off and trying to get their piece of it, and they might lose out because you don't have a strong destination. And the same thing on the group side, having measurement tools, the survey, looking at trends, tracking the number of inquiries, the amount of business booked, measurement tools for all the promotional campaigns. And then the last piece is really the community relations strategies and tactics. As we said, letting people know in town what is going on. So part of it is, participating in all the different events that are happening. I know people in other cities and towns who are charged with tourism, and they're at all the different meetings, even if it's just in the beginning in the evening or in different receptions, and just making sure they know that, hey, tourism is here and tourism is present, and we care about everything else happening in town, and we hope you care about tourism as well. Doing e-blasts, media releases, talking to the local papers about what's happening, maybe getting a regular listing of activities, having tweaking the the newsletter that you would send out to visitors to make it a community newsletter that maybe happens quarterly, asking people to sign up for it, and or reminding them, that different things are happening. Because again, going back to that consumer research from earlier, 22% of the people who were coming to Sturbridge were getting their information from family in Sturbridge. So we better make sure that the locals are educated in order to make sure that all of the messaging about what's available is getting to these people. Obviously, sharing the new logo with businesses, asking them to use it, doing some co-branding and marketing and promoting, and then having an ambassador program. So again, the locals, the residents are the best ambassadors possible. So there are some destinations that will have ambassadors for like group tours. They'll come and meet a group, or whether it's a group tour or a meeting, and they'll be, retirees who care about the destination. They come to the group and step on the bus, or right when they're checking into the hotel, and say, hey, this is everything we have to offer, and this is great. And if you have any questions, you can get answers XYZ here, to just, educating the locals and turning them into an ambassador. And maybe, I don't know, doing some, there are destinations who have ambassador programs where they will do annual educational, if you will, of interested citizens who will go out there and just speak positively on behalf of the destination, or talk to people when they're walking into the shops and telling them what's going on, and then giving them something, whether it's a t-shirt, I'm a Sturbridge ambassador, or whatever. But just really engaging the community and having them help you sell and promote is one of the most important things that can be done. And there are a variety of ways that you can develop an ambassador program, and I'm happy to talk about that in more detail as well.
Christine, I think one thing that should probably be added to that is digital ambassadors.
Yes.
And it probably fits better with a younger demographic than our most residents of Sturbridge. That's not our population, but we did that in North Central as well, just encouraging people to post and repost things and tell why they like the area. And that seemed to get a little traction, especially in 2020. So.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. That's a great idea.
Springfield was really heavy on the ambassador program when the convention bureau out there. I know they did that a lot, especially with the bus groups.
Yeah. And again, it's just a way, it's sort of not that you're not a friendly community, but it just makes the community that much more friendly and gives people that nice warm vibe of, they want me here. And that person who's a local is telling me what they like best about it, which goes back to that research that Craig presented, which is people want sort of the local perspective and the inside scoop.
Right.
And that's where we are. So with the logo that I really do like, I hope you like it as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any other questions or other things you'd like me to address? It's a lot of information.
There's a lot of information, a lot of good information. Christina, a lot of it I think some of us knew. Needed to be done. It's just, we didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle together. Right. And when Kevin came on board, he started to make inroads on this. Prior to it, it was myself and Tom and some other people who were all working at the time, and we couldn't do all this stuff. So
right, exactly.
It's a well laid out plan. And it's going to be a road of how much we can do at one time, and how we go about it, and how quickly Todd kind of gets on board and what's going on.
I do enjoy that.
Yeah, you will.
Todd, once you get settled, I'm happy to go through it with you as well, and sort of go through the timelines on the back end of it and let you know my thought process.
That's fantastic. I do love how you arranged everything, and
Mhm.
each line item is very actionable. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And again, it's not, it's designed to not spend a ton of money, but it is manpower. You know, it
Yeah.
will, it will take time, but I think that, you know, if all it's all pretty integrated, so I think it'll produce results for you.
I would agree.
Yeah, yeah. I think Todd, it's a good roadmap for you to follow. The STA is here to assist you in any way we can. Obviously, we're all the volunteers, but you know, we, especially Tom and myself, have a lot of knowledge of this town, a lot of the history. So we're glad to help you. We have an experienced hotel and salesperson in Don Merriman, and
Hello.
yeah, well, you're good. I'll promote you.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. I did the ABA webinar yesterday about, you know, basically what it's going to be like to reopen your hotel and what you have to do. And a lot of what Christina laid out in this plan was exactly the things that they were talking about. So a lot of what she was saying to me, I'm nodding my head as I'm listening because it's falling right in line with what ABA is saying as well. And they weren't obviously just talking about, they were talking about tourism in general. And basically the same idea. You've got to give people that past experience, make them feel like there's a reason for them to come and stay for one night. And those partnerships are a way to do it. And as GM of one of those local hotels, that is my goal. Even if I hadn't been on this tourism board, would be to try and find a way to partner with the other businesses in town. This has always been my aim, is that we work together like one cohesive group, because we can get more accomplished. So I loved it, Christina. I thought it was great.
Thank you.
Christina, you know, Kevin did a great job trying to get businesses together in a meeting. You know, after a while, it kind of like, okay, only so show up, and it's hard to get them all together. So it is a challenge. But,
it's hard at 8 o'clock in the morning, Brian. That was part of the problem. Business breakfast at 7:45.
Right, and that could be part of the problem too. You know, he did breakfast.
I know, that's why I didn't go.
You know, and maybe some other different time of the day would be a better time to do some of this stuff. I know it's hard because restaurants are busier in the evening and stuff. So, but there's got to be a balance there where we can get the businesses on board. We all work together. So, I think it'll happen. You know, we just have to find the right timing, and you know, I think he did quarterly meetings. So, you know, we'll keep plugging away at that.
Yeah, I think it's timing. I think in terms of the day, but I also think now, as we, you know, again, come out of all of this, everybody is going to be desperate for some sort of plan, and nobody can do it by themselves. So I think in terms of timing of getting everybody together, it's perfect timing. And also, you know, maybe now having a plan and saying, okay, this is how we're driving the agenda, and hey, let's come up with what these itineraries are, and let's come up with what these themed months are, and you know, and having something to talk about each month will help.
Yeah. Question for Jeff Bridges. Jeff, one of the original proposals when we had this plan way back when was for Christina to present it to the Board of Selectmen and other boards, you know, who are interested. I don't know where this would stand now. That'd be your call as the town administrator. You know,
I think that would be, I think once Todd's on board and he comes to a meeting, having this with the Board of Selectmen or presenting this to the Board of Selectmen would be very good, but we need to compress it.
Yes.
A lot. Yeah.
They need the 12-minute version. I get it.
Yeah, you need,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need I mean,
yeah.
it was good for us because,
Yes.
we're doing this for us, but, they're interested in seeing this, and maybe some other people in the town are interested in that. So, that's
But
good.
given Todd some time to get familiar with it
Yeah,
and actually be in a position where he could answer questions on those actionable items and maybe come up with some priorities. So if the board says, okay, what are you going to do first?
Yes.
There's some priorities that we can, know what we're going to do first.
all right, great. All right. Anybody else have anything for Christina?
Well done. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thanks
Yep.
for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
We're just we're supposed to tell everybody everything about everyone in town.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, there we go.
Yep, that's it.
no problem.
That's easy.
We got that. It's fine.
All you gotta do is make it a negative post on Facebook and everybody will
Yeah,
see it.
right, and everybody will
No
see it.
negative post, no
There we
negative
go.
post.
That's it.
But that'll just catch
All
fire.
right, Ms. Christina, thank you
I'll-
for your presentation. And
My
then
pleasure.
time.
My pleasure. And I'll
And,
talk to you soon. And I'll just
Yeah.
wrap up with you tomorrow on this.
All right, great.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
This PowerPoint, are you going to send it to us?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
send
thank
it
you.
to
Send the PowerPoint, yeah. Great,
As soon as I get off this, I will email you.
okay,
Thank you very
Awesome, thank you.
great. Thank you very
Have a
much.
good night.
All right,
Thank
have a
you.
good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
much. Have a good
Good
night.
night.
All right, bye-bye now. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, that was pretty good. I mean, a lot of it we kind of, a lot of it, some of it actually is stuff that used to happen in the town, but somewhere along the line it got dropped. So hopefully it could be picked up again. There's a lot of work to be done. And it's just to prioritize which steps should be done first. I think some of the
And bang
basic,
for the buck. Yeah.
what's that?
I'm sorry, I just said, where's our best investment in time and resources? What's going to be the most
Right.
effective way to,
Yeah. I mean, we just have to figure it out, what's the best way to start it out with. But we have a plan in place, and then we just have to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, what was in the plan, in the back of the plan, which she didn't put anything in the, her PowerPoint is a timeline spread out over a number of years. And so she's kind of set out a process for us to take a good look at and say, yeah, this makes sense. And, and I'm sure obviously it's within our purview if we think something in year 2 should be done in year 1 or year 1 should be done in year 2, vice versa. I think what I saw in the plan is it's flexible enough, that we can, make those changes and figure out what it is that is really, we think is really important out of all of the stuff she put on the plate. That said we should try to get to, what's the real meat and potatoes for us in the first year, and try to figure out what the gravy and dessert might be, and if we get time, great, but work on the meat and potato stuff.
Okay, great.
easy.
Great.
I'm hungry.
All right. Anything else before we move on to the treasurer's report? All right, Tom.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Yeah, there's more. There's more. We'll give let Tom Chamberlain tell us about the treasurer's report, because we didn't think we'd have anything new, but lo and behold, we have something new. So Tom, why don't you take it from there?
So the actual numbers, no money has been spent since our last meeting. So the numbers are basically there. I can put that up on the screen if you want to see them again. But what did come in is we did get a bill for the GeoFest and it exceeds, as best I could see, the allocated funds that we appropriated. And I did a little additional research because the Army Corps of Engineers has not yet opened Westville Park because of COVID. And so I contacted the park manager, Keith Beecher, and inquired as to whether the GeoFest was going to be allowed to have the event there, what the Corps' thinking was on these kind of larger scale events. And come to find out, they never actually even applied this year to hold the event there. So they at this point, they do not have a permit from the Corps to hold the event.
So then why are they sending us bills? Why are we getting bills?
So, you know, again, between Alex and the people, you know, this is a chamber event. And who, you know, within either the chamber or the volunteers that are trying to, you know, do the GeoFest side, you know, what communications they may or may not have had over the last few months. I can't speak to that. So
what's the bill for,
all I'm
Tom?
relaying to you is at this time, this is what we know for absolute. Obviously, at our last meeting, I believe, if I recall, Brian said he did invite at least Pauline or somebody from the chamber to you know, and nobody showed. So you know, what do we want to do?
All right.
What's the bill for, Tom?
Geocoins or something?
Yeah, GeoCoin.
But this is related. Is this a bill related to 2020 event expenses?
Yes.
For an event for which they have not applied for a permit to hold it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we had
well, come on.
We had $1,300 we set aside. We set aside $800 for out of marketing and $500 out of community support. Of the $500 out of community support, of which $16.50 was spent. I don't know on what. So we had set aside money last June for this event. It was kind of seed money. So again, these are for GeoCoins. I mean, I guess they're not going to go bad. I mean,
but is this bill from a coin company or from the chamber?
They're from the chamber. Oh, it's from the chamber.
So yeah, what it is the individual went out and bought the coins, billed the chamber, and then the chamber pays the individual and then turns around and directly bills us for reimbursement.
And how much more is the bill than what we have allocated?
All right, so GeoCoin, they have listed GeoCoins as a community support item, of which we only put $500, of which is $483.50. All right, so it exceeds that by $500. If we pay this invoice, we'd have to move money from the marketing allotment of $800 to the community support allotment to pay this bill.
It just doesn't seem very prudent to pay money for something that's likely not going to go on. I have a hard time with that.
There's a couple things in play here. So they probably are not making the distinction between marketing and community support. They're just looking at a round number. So
correct.
With it, let's set aside for the moment the fact that the event probably isn't going to happen in 2020. I would presume that if it were going forward, this would be the first of probably several bills we get. Right?
Absolutely.
Or is the idea that we just wrote the chamber a check at some point and then they pay the individual bills and we don't see the line items?
So I agree, Jeff. I think my concern in general is if we're if we are not going to support the event any further because we feel it shouldn't happen, then we need to communicate that back to the chamber so they don't keep incurring expenses. I think it would not be prudent or responsible for us to, say, well, we're not paying the bill because we don't think you should hold the event.
How do we communicate with the chamber when they're not responding to emails and phone calls? And I mean, at this stage of the game, I feel like if we can't even talk to anybody over there to ask a question about an invoice, then we shouldn't be paying it. Until we get some kind of communication from somebody at the chamber that's giving us clarification, I mean, I know we allocated money, but that was based on an event that was happening. Now the event's not going to happen.
Right.
So
in theory, after we paid for the coins, if we did, how much money is left available to them for a theoretical 2020 event?
$300.
Okay, and the coins were 500.
No, the coins were $983.50.
And did that exceed what they told us the coins would be, or is that accurate to what the budget was?
They told me, and then the original proposal, I went back on the minutes from the June meeting. The original was $250 for geocoins.
Okay, so I mean, this doesn't have to be a big drawn-out thing. I think there are two issues. One is that they've handled that irresponsibly. So whether the division of money into the source of money being two pots or one pot is transparent to them or not, they can't put a line item in a budget request for $300 for coins and then spend $900 on coins. So even if we were having an event, that's just irresponsible. But I would agree that we should go back to them and say, don't spend any more money on this event because we don't think it should happen, but we're not confident it's going to happen. And by the way, we're aware that you haven't even applied for the permit yet. There's nothing wrong with telling them that. So just don't spend anything else until we have clarity on whether this was go forward or not. And that involves the Corps, that involves Alex's job to organize it, that involves a lot of things.
I don't think it's our place to tell them we don't think the event should go on, but I think it's fair to ask for some clarification. Do they think it's going to go on? Because that just doesn't really seem likely, and we've got some additional facts that lead to that.
Yeah, we should say, since we don't know whether it will happen, let's halt the process of spending and planning for now. So
just so everyone knows, the core procedures for obtaining a permit to use Westville, that it happens on a calendar basis. And so any reservations for this calendar year can only be made starting January 1. So obviously from January, through the end of February, the opportunity was there to approach the Corps and start the process for the permit. And that was not initiated at all. And of course, with the COVID issue, everything else has just gotten but the Corps is still processing permits. It's just that right now, until, the various restrictions and quarantines are fully lifted for group events, because the Corps has those picnic shelters, each which are designed to hold well over 10 people. So, they're staying closed so they, comply with the no gathering of more than 10 people issue. So, but I'm talking to Keith, he's somewhat optimistic that, come July, they probably would be open. Although, looking at the numbers, he has the records from last year. He says, looking at the size of that event, there still may be some concern because it did go over 300-400 people last year. So that's still a pretty good size grouping, and whether the Corps will allow that this year or just restrict it to, like 100 people being the size of the picnic shelter max, that kind of thing. Those decisions have yet to be made.
And there's a difference between, I don't know how many shelters there are, but let's say there are 4, I don't know. There's a difference between having, 20 or 30 or 50 people at 2 of your 4 shelters on an afternoon because they happen to be booked, and having the park overrun by hundreds of people who are all at the same place at the same time.
Right. Yep. And that's exactly what Keith's concern is, going forward. Obviously, nobody's made that kind of decision. Nobody has the crystal ball that can say, come July or August, let's have limits of no more than 500 people. It's just right now we're at 10.
I think
so
I think you're absolutely in a position to say, until we have confidence this event will go forward, let's not do any more planning or make any more expenditures. I think you also have a leg to stand on to say, we're not going to pay this bill because this is event or not, this is 3 times the line item you projected for this particular cost. What's the difference? Where does the difference come? What accounts for the difference?
Yeah, and
now that puts somebody out of pocket somewhere, but
that was my question too. And if it's something where someone purchases them, they gave the bill to the chamber, and then the chamber gives it to us, how do we know this is a valid bill if we're not seeing the original invoice of the purchase of the coins?
Yeah,
we have the original paperwork where the person bought it, charged it. We have all that backup paperwork.
Okay.
yeah.
And just again, it doesn't answer why it was so much more than what they projected.
That's not an oops. It was $50 too much on a big order. This is
right. That's 5 times
I'm hearing
more.
This correctly, this is 3 times the request, right?
I do say I think this is just a case of, because Alex is not there, it's Paulette who's in the office. She got this bill from Dan Thompson, I guess, who purchased the geocoins. She just passed it on to, like she would normally do, because that's her job, to pass it on to us for payment, because that's what she was probably told to do. Knew we would had some money set aside for GeoFest. So she probably is not aware of how much was allocated or how much was requested or anything like that. You just pass it on. So.
Right.
So I can email and tell them we're going to hold this bill until we get some better clarification of this.
Well, and if Alex, I would think even in this position she might be responding to communications, but if she truly is not, completely disengaged, who's the current board chair? That's not a paid position. They should respond to inquiries about the chamber, right?
Yeah. I don't know how it's running. It's kind of puzzling to me, but I don't know.
Brian, do we know who the chamber president is? Don't they have an executive board?
They must have a chairman of the board. I'd have to look up on their website to see. I don't know who the person is.
Lacking Alex, I would say maybe the responsible thing would be for us to reach out to that person and express our, concern.
I can look it up on their website and see if I can send them an email as well.
Okay.
See, I told you it was a lengthy.
Yeah, the chairman of the executive committee currently is someone named Lori Cashman, who works for Yellow Iris Farm in Thompson, Connecticut. There's a Gmail address for her on the website.
Okay. All right. I'll look it up, Jeff. That way I can send it to her and let her know. All right. All right. So we'll just hold that. Anything else, Tom, on the treasurer's report?
No, there was nothing else in the box to pay for bills. We got a backup invoice from Pageo, but that's already been paid, so it must have just crashed in the mail.
Yeah.
So there was, as I checked our mailbox, there were no other invoices or bills. The only other mail we got is we got a thank you letter from the last Green Valley, thanking us for renewing our membership. And the interesting thing that I noted is on it that I didn't know is that their membership year runs on a calendar year. So our membership is good through the end of this year.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Well, that's
So,
good.
you know,
All right. Good. 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 The only other thing I can point out to everybody is the Colonial Muster has been canceled, so that $500 went back into the pot. Dan Quigley did back to me and let me know that it will be canceled, so he doesn't need the money. As far as OPECA,
Fire.
well,
There you go.
good
we
job.
got a nice 8x. We got a nice thing to put in the window.
Good, good.
I didn't know I made, Tom, I didn't know I made you the presenter so you could share your screen.
So it's a piece of paper. I don't have it digital. So
Yeah, it's old school sharing.
All right. The only other thing, as far as what's still open, I should have information about the visitor's guide for next month. We'll know about that. Opacum still is planning their event. It's still on their website. They are monitoring the situation. So I did check that out, and I have gotten in touch with all the businesses, the business of the year, who still have money to tell them we'll be extending that into next year. So at the June meeting, we'll have to encumber the funds. Sally Green, she asked me for the address, so where to send the bills, because she can't send them electronically. So I told her, I gave her the town hall address, send them Sturbridge Tourist Association. So watch for some bills.
as of Monday,
I have
they're
them.
in the box.
I have them.
You have them?
Yep.
All right.
I got them today.
Okay, good. So they came in. All right. So I knew they'd be coming in. So that'll be updated in June. All right. So the only other thing I know about in tourism, DCM, they've had some changes. They've had to lay off a person over there. So they're going through, same thing like everybody else.
How many staff did they have? They only had 2 or 3, didn't they?
Well, they only had 3. They let go of 1, and so there's only 2 of them there now, Jeff. So,
And does that account for why is her name escaping me? Who left to go run
Stephanie.
the trailers?
Stephanie,
Were there 3 left? Were there 3 left after her? After she left?
After she left, there were 3 left, so they laid off another person. So there's just Monique and another person there.
Monique Messier, and I don't know if they laid off Dustin or if Dustin is the one still there.
I bet they got rid of the guy that was doing the sports event recruitment.
Right, that's
that
correct.
Was Dustin. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so they got rid of him. So there've been changes there. And the only other thing that we know about, and I don't have the very latest on this, is Rapscallion. Tom knows a little bit about this too. I guess Cedric is having some issues with the leasing arrangement that he has at his present location. And he is exploring manufacturing in Spencer. But he'd still like to keep a presence here in Sturbridge where he could do, a setup for his beer club and his pouring. I don't know, Jeff Bridges, if you know anything about that, because
I know he's looking at options and would like to stay in town.
I actually had a conversation with Doe at Highland. I think it was I don't know if it was last year or before the beginning of the wedding season last year. And she had basically told me that they had always had an agreement that they would lease the space for their brewing and their tap room, and they would supply Highlands with all of the beer for those events. Now, according to what Doe said, Cedric told her that that was the demand. They couldn't keep up with it, so they covered that arrangement, and he was looking as of last year for a new place to start a new brewery, and of course wanting to stay. I don't know if that relationship has become not supplying.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I've known Cedric for a while, and I just kind of reached out to him and I said, Cedric, if there's anything we could do to help you out, just let us know. And because we want him to stay here in town. We want to keep that business here because he's been a good supporter of tourism here in Sturbridge. So, I don't know what'll happen there. So just something to know about. So I don't know if anybody has anything else about that. Any other tourism comments? I don't know when the hotels are opening. So.
Well, at this rate of the game, probably not this year. They're saying phase 2 or phase 3, but there's still going to be restrictions, even if the lodging is allowed to open. I know for me, we're not going to open until the village is allowed to open. So it just makes no sense. But, as far as our hotel, Comfort Inn is open, and, most of them are open now. Just supposed to be just essential work.
Yeah.
And Dawn, are hotels phase 2 or 3? Has that been, what list are they on?
I want to say it was phase 2 because they said not before. The note I got from Andrea said not before June 8th, but Jim Donahue from OSV said not before June 1st. So that's semantics. Either way, it's not going to happen. And that's assuming that each phase only lasts the 3 weeks. If those phases could go longer than 3 weeks, which will then push the date. So I don't anticipate lodging being able to open until somewhere towards the middle of the end of June. And even at that point, as long as groups are still restricted to 10 or less, it's going to be tough.
What do you think about the village proper?
The village proper is trying very hard to play on the side of caution. Even, they know they could push the argument that because it's an open air museum, that they could fall in line with other things like parks and stuff like that to be able to be open with restrictions, of course. But they would rather not rush it and take our time, make sure that every safety precaution that could be put in place is, and do everything we can to assure people that we're taking all the safe precautions for them when they get there. So they are definitely not rushing to try and open it. They want to take their time and make sure they do it right.
I mean, I feel like the inclination of most people that had some exotic summer plans is going to be to not go anywhere outside of Massachusetts. And if you live anywhere in this region and have young kids, the first place you're going to go when you're allowed to go somewhere is going to be a place like OSV. But I respect the health and safety argument.
Right, and that's why I said Christina's marketing plan fell right in line with what ABA was saying as well, that you are going to be getting those people that are going to be driving, hour and a half, 2 hours away to come in. So we need to make it attractive for them to want to come here. And even for hotels, they're telling you, when you reopen to the people, reopen as if it's a brand new hotel thing. Whatever you can do to encourage to come into town and just stay. We'll see.
All right, great.
The only thing I was going to throw in there is on the trail side. Interesting. We have infrared people counters at 3 of our parking lots, trailheads, access points, and for the month of April, the data once analyzed revealed that we had some 6,000, maybe 6,500 individual people walking the trails in the month of April. And the Trails Committee, starting Monday, is trying out a on-the-trail virtual mountain bike race.
Oh,
Where we're promoting it on our Facebook page. So if you want to, see it, a little more of it, log on to the Friends of Sturbridge Trails Facebook. But those that are into mountain biking, they can register on our Facebook page as, an event. They're going to an event. And then using one of the mountain, trail apps where, it records your route and your time, Stravada or something like that, Strata. We've got an account set up with them where people log into the event there. They have that on their phone. They turn their phone on. They ride the trail. It records their time. And then we will have a virtual race winner by the June 8th. So the actual race runs from May 25th to June 8th. So it's something we're trying out to promote people to come out on the trails and see if it's some kind of an event that maybe we could turn it into something a little bit bigger.
That's wicked cool. I love that. If the parking lot that I pass on my way into the back side of the village every morning, the one when you go through the gates, is any indication of the number of people that are out on that trail, that parking lot is packed every single time I go by it. And I think that's the trail that leads to that Blue Lagoon that we were talking about on Facebook.
Yes.
And I said almost every day when I go by, it is packed. So people are definitely out there using the trail.
The raw number on that counter was almost 5,100 alone on that counter.
I believe
because
it.
There are different ways to access the trails. And you can come in and go by the same counter or go in a different way and come out and then people are social distancing. So they're walking around the other side of the gate. If somebody's walking in on the right side, they're walking around the left side, so they're not getting caught by the counter. And, it's, life goes on out there, but over 5,000 counts in the month of April on that particular
I'm pretty sure I'm in those numbers because I've been trying to get out there with the puppies and take them on as many of those walks as we can. So I'm so grateful for the trails in this area.
all right. One last thing, just to let you know, our budget was approved by the Finance Committee for the 2021. So they approved it. So it's now.
Oh, good. Did you attend that meeting, Brian?
No, I actually let Jeff know too late that I would be willing to go. It was with all the stuff that's going on, I forgot to tell him. So he said, "Don't worry, you're all set." So,
good. Yeah, I was gonna miss it going in front of them. They have our annual discussions.
I know. Hey, Todd Miller, anything you would like to say to the group? I know you're not officially on board yet, but.
No, I'm incredibly excited to get started. There's so much to work with in Sturbridge. Even with the 5-town regions I work in Quabbin, it was very much a cut the path as you walk the path sort of situation. I love the fact that I can work collaboratively with other experts. This is great.
Good. Well, we look forward to working with you, and you'll get to know Tom close because you worked very closely with Tom. You share the same office right now, or same area right now anyway. But we're here to help you, and I'll be glad once you get on board. You got a lot of things to go through, so I'll be available to kind of go through everything with you as well. And when Christina sends us stuff, I'll make sure you get it as well.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Todd.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
All right. The next meeting I would like to have, if we could, on June 17th. And the reason I say that is that would give Todd a couple weeks to get on board and get accustomed to things. June 10th, it's normally the second Wednesday. June 10th is way too soon. He'll only be here just a little over a week. I still have 4 proposals that we have to act on. So I don't know if I don't know what kind of, it'll be either virtual or I don't know if it'll be live yet, but at least virtual.
It'll be virtual.
Yeah, virtual. Yeah, that's what I thought so, but
Well, I have
That
no
day works
life,
for me.
so yeah, any day works for me.
all right. I'm gonna set it up as June 17th right now, and because like I said, I have 4 presenters. The Jaguar Association, their event is still on, is still being promoted on their website. So even though I haven't heard back from him officially, but the others are in October, so and then December. So I put them off as far as I can, so we have to hear them on the next meeting. All right, all right, all right. Motion to adjourn.
Tom Chamberlain moves to adjourn.
All right,
Don Merriman, second.
all right. Brian Amity, aye.
Nick Salvador, aye.
Jeff Artis, aye.
Tom Chamberlain, aye.
Don Merriman, aye.
Great. All right. Thank you all very much. Okay.
Thank you.
A long
Did we
meeting.
behave ourselves tonight, Jeff?
All
It was
right.
an outstanding meeting. There's a lot to do, and I'm looking forward to jumping into that plan and get after it. We got a lot of businesses that need us to speak for them and help them out.
I agree.
For sure.
All right. And Jeff Bridges, you'll have Andrea do the minutes again.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I do have one quick thing. Not that I in any way, shape, or form want to extend this meeting, but I have one quick thing. The CARES Act money, the federal money that was put out to the world, Massachusetts has about $10 million for what's called micro enterprises. And a micro enterprise is a business with 5 or fewer employees where one is the owner. So there's grants available, or there's money available through the Community Development Block Grant Program for us to grant out funds to help these businesses that have been impacted by COVID. The unfortunate thing is the businesses have to be either owned by someone who is in low to moderate income category or services a community that's 51% low to moderate income. We may have a few of the business owners that are 80% low mod, but we don't have a community that's 51% low mod. So what we're going to do is we're looking to partner with Sturbridge, who is a micro entitlement community to get these funds direct, or they have a better chance of getting these funds, and they have a community that's more that suits those categories. But our business in town that fit that 80% low mod can apply through Southbridge to get assistance under this micro enterprise program. So we're partnering that. Should be available sometime this summer for those grants if we get the funding through Southbridge. So we're doing that to kind of help the really small businesses in town.
Great. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone. You have a good night. Stay safe. All
Thank you very much, everybody.
Night.
right.
Yep.
Good night. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.